Well, I'll tell you, that was one of the things that I remember hearing Gary Keller say. I think Gary Keller is one of the smarter people in real estate. He just said you can have like 75 different businesses as long as each one of them is like a manila folder, what goes on inside of it, and there's a face on the front of that business, and that face is not yours, right? Like that's that whole thing. You got to have somebody else running it, and that face cannot be yours. Otherwise, you're going to be a bottleneck, right? No, I don't care how talented you are going to be the bottleneck.
Yeah, you don't want to be the bottleneck. And I have been the bottleneck of many a business.
Me too, brother. Me too.
It takes a lot to learn to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
It really takes a lot. It took me a long, long time. And I'm not even sure I've mastered it, but I've at least learned to recognize that at some point I become the weaker link in the business in some department, and it's holding up every department.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the worst when you realize that was honestly one of the biggest leveling up that I've ever had was when I brought in people that at the time they were 80% as good as I was. So they weren't as good as I was at what I was doing, but then very quickly, because they could devote all their time to that versus me, where I had my time in a bunch of different categories, like their production was a lot better. So like when I was going to meet with people to get them signed up, on the first appointment, I would outclose anybody. But the reality is, because of my time constraints and everything else, I didn't follow up nearly as well as they would. So their actual total closings were much better than I was. I'll outclose them on the first appointment, but I didn't. Yeah. Anyway, so just that same point.
That's exactly how I finally came to the conclusion, and how I got out of my business on a day-to-day transactions was I learned exactly what you said. They're not as good as me, but their attention is undivided. So they're better than me. They're better. That's a really big realization.
And now, there's a couple of the folks that are taking those appointments that close better than I ever closed. And I don't know whether it's because of the undivided nature of it. They're massively talented, but man, it's just great to let people stay in their lane and me stay in my lane. And yeah, it's awesome, brother.